Good morning, everybody. When we started out on our vaccination effort, we called it Vaccine for All. We literally said, we're going to make this something that works for every New Yorker, everywhere, every neighborhood. Easy, fast, free, all the things that New Yorkers care about, making sure they can get in and out fast. Of course, knowing it's there for everyone for free. We've seen amazing things happen, by far the biggest vaccination effort in the entire history of New York City. It keeps growing every day, and the numbers are impressive, and we keep using new approaches. And this weekend, the weekend of faith, a key example, let's bring all the houses of worship into this effort. Trusted community voices connecting with their congregants, saying, here's vaccination for you, here's a way to make it work that's easy, here's a way to do the right thing for yourself, your family, your community. The houses of worship did an amazing job. This weekend, 2,000 vaccinations at the houses of worship as part of our referral program. 2,000 more people got vaccinated. That means every single one of those folks were able to get a bonus themselves, the $100 incentive, but it also means that every house of worship got $100 for each person that they convinced to come in and get vaccinated. This is a powerful approach, and it's going to grow. And the referral bonus approach, I want to be clear, the beauty of it is the individual is rewarded for coming forward, but whatever the organization is, a house of worship, a community group, a business, they get a boost too, and a thanks from the city for doing the right thing and helping to get people vaccinated. A lot of great examples around the city. A nonprofit organization, houses of worship, businesses, small businesses, community businesses, restaurants that are already participating in the referral bonus program. One great example, East Flatbush Village, an amazing community group, does great work. They have really focused on getting the community vaccinated in a place where we need extra help reaching people. And they've already referred over 450 people in the East Flatbush area to get vaccinated. 450 more people who are going to be safe, helping to move the city forward, but also thousands of dollars in referral bonus support for East Flatbush Village. Everyone wins in this equation. East Flatbush Village does after-school tutoring for kids. They do really important anti-violence work in the community. They do youth sports. Great work to make the community better, leading the way on vaccination as well. I want you to hear from the executive director of East Flatbush Village, who's done so much to help the community. My pleasure to introduce Eric Waterman.
Thank you, Mayor de Blasio. Greatly appreciate it, and thank you for having us on today for your press conference. So I just want to say, again, thank you for this initiative. It's been a great opportunity for us as a community stakeholder to be able to get access to our community in a way that continues to bolster the idea of being a community stakeholder and being a trusted voice in the community. I think that is what also speaks to this particular initiative. Not everybody could come in anybody's community and just say, hey, I want to provide information, vaccine information. The numbers that you stated in terms of our vaccination success has come solely on the fact that we have been doing work in all those other areas that you spoke of, whether it be in schools and after school, our anti-violence initiative, our sports and cultural enrichment programs allowed us to be in spaces where people trust that when we say this is an opportunity for you to, of course, be safe, make sure your families are safe, and also get access to something that maybe not be as accessible to you, that we can get you access and we can get you that opportunity. So we were wonderfully glad to be a participant in this, and we're greatly appreciative of the trust of the city, but also the community and the constituents across the board throughout the city.
Eric, thank you so much. I really want to thank you. You've given a great example of what a community group can do. I mean, one community group bringing in well over 400 folks. I'm so happy that's benefiting the good work you do in general, but I'm particularly happy that we got over 400 more New Yorkers who are vaccinated. And then that means more people will hear the story that it worked, that it was easy. There's going to be a huge multiplier effect here. So I really want to thank you for what you're doing for the East Flatbush community and for giving a great example to everyone that so many community organizations and other organizations can be a part of this and make a huge impact. Thank you so much for everything you're doing.
Thank you.
Now, again, I mentioned it's not just community-based organizations or houses of worship. We welcome small businesses. We welcome barbershops and beauty salons. We welcome restaurants. We welcome bodegas. Anyone who wants to be a part of this, encouraging community members to come in and get vaccinated. We want those small businesses to benefit. We want to make sure that the individuals from the community come in and get vaccinated. First and foremost, we want them to benefit from it, but we want the small businesses to benefit as well. Here's an example. A restaurant in Harlem, Safari, great restaurant, serves up wonderful Somali food. And they recognize, after everything they've been through, the restaurant's hit hard like so many others by the pandemic. They recognized that they could not only bring the restaurant back, but do something great for the community. In a second, you're going to hear from Shakib Faras, who, with his wife Mona, are doing great work educating the community about the power of vaccination. So here's a community-based business. Customers love it, community loves it. And here's another place where people are hearing how important it is to get vaccinated, and an opportunity for the restaurant to benefit from the referral bonus program. Everybody wins in this scenario. I want you to hear this great example from the wonderful Safari restaurant in Harlem. Shakib Farah, welcome.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor, and thank you for giving us the opportunity to share our experience with this program of vaccine. To tell you a little story, Safari is the only Somali restaurant based in New York City, and we're very glad to take part of the referral program to provide our staff and patrons to have a convenience way to find a vaccination. The vaccine referral program helped us send our loved community members to get vaccinated so they can be safe and save their lives and help all our New Yorkers get back to business and beat the pandemic together. We also encourage our other restaurant owners to participate in this program so they can too can bring it to life and save the lives of the people and vaccine our community. And the revenue of $100, it's really kind of a way to help our own and the expenses. So whenever we refer, it's a win-win. We refer our community members and our clients to get healthy, but also $100 net bad just to get it at the end of the day. So this is still working, and we appreciate the services that the vaccine program is rolling out in New York City.
Thank you so much, Shakib. And I want to tell you, first of all, give you credit for wearing the T-shirt. You got to always promote a small business, a local restaurant, so I'm glad you're getting the name out there. I've heard great things about the restaurant. I look forward to visiting. But I really want to thank you for giving people a great example of how every community business can help to keep people safe. And I wish you great success going forward.
Thank you.
All right, now, the referral bonus, great opportunity for our restaurants as part of how we bring them back. But the most important thing for restaurants, for all of us, is to make this city healthy, make this city safe, make sure we defeat COVID once and for all. I've been talking a lot lately about the fact that we need to get our focus on ending the COVID era once and for all. We can do that. We can do that if enough of us get vaccinated. And we can, therefore, avoid ever having to go back to restrictions. Remember when all those restaurants got closed, those businesses got closed? Remember the devastating impact? We can never let that happen again. We first and foremost have to protect people because of their health and well-being. We have to save lives, but we also can't see our businesses destroyed because we didn't do everything in our power to fight COVID. So that's why the mandates we put in place are so important. And a key to NYC is here. It's being implemented all over the city. Customers know they'll be safe when they're in a restaurant or any indoor entertainment. The folks who work there know they're safe as well. It's not easy. There's real work to be done. That's why we spent weeks on outreach and education, and that's why enforcement doesn't begin until September 13th. But we want to make it as clear as possible. We want to answer questions. We want to work with restaurant owners and other business owners to get it right. One of the things we heard from restaurant owners is they wanted a simple, message that they could put up at the entrance to a restaurant so everyone understands the rules. And they understand it's a city rule. It's not something made up by each restaurant. It's universal now. This is the poster we're going to have available and in multiple languages for restaurants in a variety of communities. To make clear, this is something everyone has to do for the well-being of all of us, to keep us moving forward, to defeat COVID once and for all. Now, I want everyone to know we make clear on this poster, by the way, let's say someone goes to a restaurant and they didn't know about the rule. They really want to go to the restaurant and they're ready to get vaccinated. We've done a lot of research. We know the vast majority of unvaccinated people are actually willing to get vaccinated. They just haven't done it yet. You really want to go to that restaurant? You really want to go to that concert, whatever it may be? Here, there's a way you can access the information, the nearest vaccination site. You can literally go to that vaccination site, get your first shot, get your card, come right back, go to that restaurant, go to that movie theater, go to that concert. That's how flexible this rule is. We just want people to get going on vaccination. We know people get the first shot, end up getting the second shot as well. So the information is there, and anybody who wants these posters or wants to get them in other languages, and we'll be reaching out to small businesses, but also small businesses, of course, can go to nyc.gov/key-to-NYC, as can all New Yorkers, to get the facts about this new approach. Remember, it's for indoor dining, indoor entertainment, it's for indoor fitness, and we, in the guides we're providing, the information we're providing today, are showing the best practices. We're showing how to go about, if you're a business or a gym, whatever it is, the best way to simply check a vaccination card. Now, remember, restaurants and bars have plenty of experience checking IDs. You check in when you go to a fitness center or gym. There's lots of history here that we can draw on, but we're showing real templates. So it's clear how a business can manage this and make it work, and also how to know when there's a fake vaccination card and what to do about it. And by the way, when there's a fake vaccination card, that means someone has committed a very serious crime. Literally, that could lead to prison time for anyone who fraudulently creates a fake vaccination card. That is a major offense. So we make that clear to business owners and what to do about it. I want you to hear about this new guide and what it's going to mean, helping New York City businesses to protect their customers, their employers, and the entire city, and move us all forward. Someone who's been fighting all the way through COVID to help small business, our Small Business Services Commissioner, John L. Doris.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Everywhere I go around the city visiting small businesses, our restaurants, our mom and pop shops, you can just feel the city coming alive again this summer. You can see our small businesses coming back. We want that to continue. We need that to continue. And the way to make sure this continues is by safely getting people vaccinated through the Key to NYC program. The first day the Key to NYC launched, I visited Ricardo Steakhouse in East Harlem, one of the 11,800 plus restaurants in our open restaurants program. The atmosphere was full of life and energy, and most importantly, customers. They have already had the flyer up. They already began the process in asking customers if they are vaccinated or not. And they said something to me, I think, that was so important. The manager said to me that this took away the ambiguity of what it is and who's coming in and what to do, and the need to make their customers and their workers understand the processes that we're implementing. They said that it was consistent. They said that it was clear, and everybody understood what was expected. And that is what we've done here at SBS, which is walk in the corridors, speaking to small businesses, East Harlem, Coney Island, all around the city, to hear from them about what we need to do to make sure they fully understand and grasp what is being implemented here. The Key to NYC is protecting our workers, our customers, and also our small businesses across the city. Our job here at SBS is to keep training them and educating them to make sure that whatever is needed is possible, and that we give them the resources to do it. Already, we've hosted various online trainings. We have 600 plus canvassers out in the field speaking to small businesses now. And I thank our BIDs, our business improvement districts, our chambers, our small business council, all of who are doing this significant outreach and support this mandate that is out there now. And today, we're putting our brand new industry-specific guidance that will further help business owners with the mandate. If you are a restaurant, you'll be able to look and see exactly what you need to do. If you're a gym, you'll have specific help on how to put your plan in action. If you're a movie theater, you'll find out on how to keep the line moving, or any business for that matter. We have specific guidance for you. There are free weekly online trainings as well every Wednesday, and trainings also come in Mandarin and in Spanish. And to help you create your business implementation plan, we've created a template that you can quickly and easily fill in. How to put your plan into action, know what to check, how to keep things moving quickly when verifying vaccination cards, all of that and more. Go to nyc.gov, key to NYC, to find out all the information you need there. These resources will be available in 13 languages. To our small business owners, we are with you every step of the way, provided the necessary resources and education, incentives for vaccine referrals. We will make this easy as possible. If you have any questions, as we've done throughout the pandemic, our team is here to help you with a personal one-on-one support. Just give us a call at 888-SBS-4NYC, 888-SBS-4NYC. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Commissioner. I love when you remember to give that phone number. Thank you very much. Everyone, throughout the pandemic, we've been focusing on the needs of all New Yorkers, but we all as New Yorkers, we love our restaurants. We love all the parts of this city that make us so special. You know, the restaurants in New York City are part of our personality, part of our heart and soul, part of our energy, part of why people come here from all around the world, but also our restaurants represent all of us. They represent all of our cultures. They represent the dreams of people who thought, maybe I could create something great, and then they do it. So from the very beginning, I've been listening to the voices of restaurant owners as they've talked about what they need to survive, and we've tried every step of the way, starting with outdoor dining and so many other steps, to help them through, and thank God so many have made it. One of the people who's been there with us every step of the way, literally every step of the way, and he has offered ideas, critiques. If he likes something, he says. If he doesn't like something, he says. He's been a great advocate for his industry, but he's been someone who's worked with us to always find the next step that we could take to keep people safe and protect the employees and the patrons of the restaurant industry and everyone who loves it. He's been with us every step of the way, and I want to say thank you for that. The Executive Director of the New York City Hospitality Alliance, Andrew Ridgie.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Mr. Commissioner. You know, our city's restaurant industry is just amazing. I mean, we saw the owners of Safari Restaurant, I think up on 116th Street. That is what our city is about. And this pandemic has been so challenging for our small businesses, particularly our local restaurants and our bars. And, you know, we felt like we were on this great path to recovery. And then sure enough, Delta hit. And what the mayor said is correct. We cannot go back to the restrictions that we saw throughout the pandemic. If you remember, going indoors, having to have your temperature taken, having to do contact tracing information, you couldn't stand at a bar. The list goes on and on and on. And throughout the pandemic, you know, we had to make a lot of tough decisions. But today we have the vaccine. We have the tool to get us through the pandemic. And if we want to help New York City recover, we need to help our city's restaurants recover. And when we first heard about a vaccine requirement for indoor dining, as you can imagine, an organization that represents restaurants has to reach out to restaurants throughout the 5 boroughs and get your feedback. And you know, if you know restaurant people have a lot of opinions, just like all New Yorkers. And there's a lot of people that support this requirement. There's a lot that have concerns. There's other people that just say, you know, I understand we need to get New Yorkers vaccinated if we want to get to the other side about this. But what is going to be the impact on our business? So we need to recognize that these requirements do have an impact on people's businesses. I've heard from some where their customers say, you know what, I'm finally more comfortable to go eat indoors now because of this vaccine requirement. We've heard from others that may be losing business. But at the end of the day, we cannot go backwards. If we don't do anything, we know what's going to happen. There was some recent survey data that was national, but I think it really hits home here in New York. Because of Delta, 19% of adults have stopped going out to restaurants. 9% have canceled reservations. 37% have ordered takeout or delivery instead of going out to a restaurant. And 19% are choosing to sit outside instead of inside. So we know that if we don't get more people vaccinated, if we do not work hard as a restaurant community, as a New York community, to get people vaccinated, this pandemic is going to continue to impact our industry. You know, sometimes we think about the short game, and I understand when you're a restaurant owner, it's day in, day out. This is a penny's business. You've gone through an extraordinary amount throughout the past 18 months, and now having to deal with these requirements will make it tough. But we need to do it together. We were just up at Melba's restaurant in Harlem last week, getting people vaccinated. And we get it. There's some real hesitancy out there. A young woman was so nervous. She called her mom, should I get vaccinated? And then we walked in, people held her hands, she got vaccinated. More and more restaurant workers that were hesitant are getting vaccinated. We need to keep our restaurant workers safe. Vaccination is the way to do it. We need to provide an environment for our customers to be safe, and we need to do everything to ensure that we don't go back to the earlier days of the pandemic. So that's why our industry always says we need a seat at the table, and we have a seat at the table with the mayor, with the commissioner, making sure our industry's voice is heard and working with them to come up with clear guidelines so businesses can follow them. And remember, regardless of what your opinion is about the requirement, there's the respect song, RESPECT. We need to respect restaurant workers. They're trying to make a living. We need to support our local restaurants. So please go out, get vaccinated, participate in these programs. If we want New York City to recover, we need our city's restaurants to recover, and vaccination is the way to do it. We have definitely tough days ahead of us, but we also have a really bright future, and we need to work together to get that done. So I want to thank you. We'll continue to be the voice, be supportive, critique, but make sure that you know that we have a partner in the restaurant industry so we can get through this together.
Amen. And you're at the table right now. I just want to say we
I
need a
love
seat at the
that.
table. You're at the
See
table.
that?
So yeah, it worked. Andrew, thank you. You've been a stalwart. And to you and your colleagues, everyone who's been with us, we appreciate it as we work this through. And look at these guides. I just want to make sure everyone sees this is the kind of thing you'll see online for indoor dining, for indoor entertainment, for fitness facilities, specific detailed plans on how people can make this work effectively and where to go for more information. And that's crucial. We obviously want to put forward proactively the information that business owners need. We want to make it as easy as possible, but we know there's going to be a lot of questions. So we welcome those calls from business owners to work it through. And the team at SBS is ready, willing, and able, including going out to businesses and working with them on the scene to show them the best way to approach this new effort for the good of all. Now, I want to hear from a city council member who has been a strong advocate for small business and a strong advocate for ending the COVID era. And he has supported the key to the New York City approach and the understanding that we need the right kind of mandates to make sure we never slip backwards. He's worked with small businesses in the community to make sure this plan comes to fruition for the good of all, and he really understands what it's going to mean when we get this right for the future of New York City. My pleasure to introduce from Manhattan, Councilmember Keith Powers.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I always appreciate hearing Andrew Ridgey do his Aretha Franklin impression. So nice to see you all.
Never before seen, Councilmember.
I recorded it, so for the archives. But thank you for having me here today. It's nice to see all of you. I feel like for the last few months, it's been a dozen times I've been with you, Mr. Mayor, on here or in Times Square and other parts of my district talking about the need to help rescue our tourism and hospitality industry and to deliver much needed support for Broadway and our performance arts spaces and just other ways to bring back New York City. And we know, and you know, because you've been talking about this so much, that there is a way to do that. And that is to get vaccinated, to keep yourself safe, and to keep your fellow New Yorkers safe. As we talked about bringing back New York City and the comeback, it really requires us to be able to safely congregate again. And the only way to do that is to have vaccinations be a large part of the equation. That means helping people get the vaccination easily, but also making sure that we are requiring it for any spaces where there's going to be people congregating together. I represent Broadway. I represent so many parts of the tourism industry here in New York City, and I always say there's really nothing like seeing your favorite Broadway show for the first time or seeing your favorite band play. But we are unable to do that if the risk for COVID continues to be high and the numbers are where they are. So we do need to have some way to make sure that we can push folks to be able to get vaccinated and make sure that we are doing our part to keep everyone safe. And I have to say, I've been, and talking about the restaurant industry, I've been really encouraged what I've seen so far. I've been to countless restaurants that have asked for vaccination. Every restaurant I've walked into has asked for vaccination and ID before entering. I got to go see the Killers last week, right before the homecoming concert, and the venue had all the protocols set up to make sure that people were vaccinated and they were checking. And for many events that I'm seeing coming up, vaccination is a prerequisite. So I think it's working. I think New Yorkers, for the most, are encouraged and feel safe in environments where they are getting asked ahead of time for their vaccination. Makes us all feel safer, making sure that we can go out and support all those industries like our restaurant industry that have been hit so hard during the pandemic. So I want to say I really continue to think this is a strategy for us to come out of the pandemic and enter the holiday season and enter a big part of New York City's tourism season in a safe way. And of course, I want to encourage New Yorkers all to get back to Broadway or attend the US Open or go to your favorite restaurant or go to a concert. And the only way you can do that right now safely is to get vaccinated. So thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, of course, Andrew Ridgie and everyone who's pushing so hard to make sure that we are doing our reopening in a very safe way. And of course, encourage every New Yorker to go get vaccinated.
Thank you so much, Councilmember. Councilmember, I just have one thing that always puzzles me, and I bet Andrew Ridgie's with me on this. You know, you've been on this press conference many times, and every time you have a number of vignettes, not just one, a number of vignettes of restaurants you've been to, and yet you never seem to gain weight. I want to know what that's about. I mean, you seem to eat out a lot.
I do eat out a lot. It's the life of a busy council member. I'm not sure. Genetics is a fantastic thing, I suppose.
I think it's all the dancing.
Yeah. It's the Keith Powers diet plan. You heard it here first.
I like it.
Thank you, Councilmember.
Thank you.
All right, so now listen, we've talked about small businesses, we've talked about restaurants, what's crucial to our recovery, saving our businesses, saving jobs, bringing back the life of this city. And we know that's going to be a crucial part of our economic recovery, but we also know our recovery is deeper than that. And we have to keep focusing not only on people's health fighting COVID, but on public safety as well. All of these pieces go together in a recovery for all of us. So yesterday we talked about a profound problem, the fact that our court system is not fully functioning. And I want to say it again, really clearly, specifically, not fully functioning when so many other parts of our society are fully functioning. Again, for the first 6 months of this year, when you compare 2019, the first 6 months of 2019, 405 trial verdicts in New York City. The first 6 months of 2021, only 18 in New York City. There should not be excuses for that. You know, I would like to hear from the folks who run the courts, not their excuses or pointing fingers elsewhere, but just say what they're going to do to fix it right now. We all, in every part, you're hearing private sector, the restaurants open, making it work. We're bringing back schools, city offices, you name it. There's so many places where people are back, but our court system is just not functioning. And it's moving at a snail's pace compared to the rest of the state. So for that same 6 month period, here's another comparison. In all the rest of New York State, 40 trials per month on average. In New York City courts, only 7 trials per month. It makes no sense considering that so much of the activity is obviously should be here in the courts in New York City. So much that has to be addressed should be happening here in New York City, but it's not. So how do you stop crime if criminals think there will be no consequences? If criminals know there's not going to be trials, it's not helpful in the least. And just you'll hear later on this week from our NYPD commissioner what he's seeing in this situation. But I don't even think you need an expert to see the common sense of this, that if there's no trials, there's no consequences. That doesn't help us stop crime. That's the whole reason we have a criminal justice system to begin with. And there's supposed to be speedy justice that goes back to the founding of the Republic. And instead, we see snail's pace justice, and it's hurting our efforts to keep the city safe. I want you to hear from a truly respected national expert. You know, in the last 8 years, I've been working on issues of public safety with incredible professionals at the NYPD and mayors around the country, and there's one name I hear over and over, and it's real interesting. I hope he appreciates this fact that when folks want to talk about one of the ultimate wise men, one of the people who really understands public safety and how to bring police and community together in common cause, they talk about Chuck Wexler. I've heard his name dozens and dozens and dozens of times all around the country. And he understands there is an interconnectedness here. What happens at the community level, what happens with policing, what happens with courts, it all needs to move together. And if one piece of the equation is not working, everything else is affected. I want you to hear from him directly about why it's so important to get our court system up and running 100% so all crimes are addressed. He is executive director of the Police Executive Research Forum, one of the most trusted voices related to public safety in the United States of America. My pleasure to introduce Chuck Wexler.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you for the kind words, and thank you for your leadership on all fronts. New York City's coming back strong, listening to you talk about restaurants and jobs, and public safety is a big part of that, Mayor. So thank you for your leadership. You know, since beginning in 2020, we have seen crime dramatically increase. And, you know, criminologists will debate why crime has gone up. And I think that's not what we're trying to do here today. We know that the pandemic has had a significant impact. But, you know, the good news is, I think we're starting to see changes. I mean, if you look at New York, talk to Dermot Shea, your commissioner there, he will tell you that gun arrests are up. They've been up, you know, now significantly. So, you know, and prosecutors are starting to get back in the game. But a big major component, like you said, Mayor, is the courts. And I don't think we've seen a period like we're in now in the last 2 years. Because just like you said, Mayor, how do you operate the criminal justice system without the courts? The courts are the very central part of the criminal justice system. That's where the body of information, that's where we have juries, that's where we have citizens, that's where we have prosecutors, defense attorneys. But what happens when that system shuts down? Look at this. In 2018, you had 229 criminal cases. In 2020, you had 20. And in 2021, you had one trial in the city of New York. I mean, that's just astonishing. In non-jury trials, in 2019, you had 115. In 2020, you had 20. And in 2021, you had 0. And so we've seen a 97% decrease since 2019. So you have a system here where it has basically come to a screeching halt, and it's still at a screeching halt. But as you said, Mayor, if you compare it to upper state New York, the state courts seem to be recovering faster. They're having more than 6 times the rate of New York City. It just doesn't make any sense. I get it. The pandemic has affected all of us. But here's what's happening. You look at, usually, if you didn't have, say, the courts, maybe you'd have plea bargainings, but in 2019, there were 8,860 plea bargains compared to 3,002 in 2021. So there's no incentive to plea bargain because there's no concern about going to trial. Right now, in New York City, you have 4,000 open gun cases where suspects are on the street while waiting trial for more than a year. What we know about crime is this. We know a small percentage of individuals are responsible for a disproportionate number of crimes. No trials for a year, no plea bargaining going down. What's happening to those people who are in the system? And you know what? The tragedy is that's why your shootings and your murders are up. Those are the two crimes out of all of the index crimes that are going on. Right now, Jerome Skolnick wrote a book, Justice Without Trial. Right now, we have no justice with no trial. And that is the sad thing. The NYPD can continue making a lot of arrests, but as good as that may be, that's going to fall short without the court system. There has to be some accountability. Look, America's getting back on its feet. Restaurants are opening up. Police departments are working. Prosecutors are coming back. We really have to say this one area, the central part of the criminal justice system, the courts, how do we get them back and running? This isn't about blaming anyone. We're all fearful. We get vaccinated. We wear masks. We come to work. That's what needs to happen. Doing something about the courts will do something about crime. We're all in this together. So I don't want people to look at what we're pointing at the courts. We're just saying to the courts, we need your help. Help New York City be a safer place. Mayor, thank you for your leadership.
Thank you so much, Chuck. And beautifully, beautifully explained. And look, I agree with you. This is about everyone chipping in. And it can be done. But it's not going to work without the court system. And I think you just put it in powerful perspective. This is a crisis in plain sight. And we've got to be clear about it. Right now, there should be a lot of energy focused from elected officials, from the media, from everyone to say, how do we fix this? We all need to fix it together. But there's no way we get back to the levels of safety that we need if we don't have a functioning court system. It just stands to reason. Chuck, thank you. And I agree with your optimism. We are going to get there. There's no question. We've proven before, and you've been a big part of it around the country. We can come up with better and better ways to keep people safe. So thank you. Thank you for the great work you're doing.
Thank you, Mayor.
Okay, everyone, let's go to our indicators today. And again, we start with the doses administered to date. And I got to tell you, I'm seeing great things out there. We talked about Weekend of Faith, the referral bonus program. The mandates are having an impact. Incentives are having an impact. From day one, 10,678,226 doses and growing all the time. Number two, daily number of people admitted to New York City hospitals for suspected COVID-19. Today's report, 126 patients. Confirmed positivity level, 16.91%. And hospitalization rate of 1.31 per 100,000. And number three, new reported cases, 7-day average, 1,677. A few words in Spanish, and I want to go back to making sure that our restaurants come back, that the employees are safe, the customers are safe, everyone together works with the key to NYC. Los números nos están diciendo todo lo que necesitamos saber. Las vacunas salvan vidas. El nuevo póster que estamos sacando hoy va a ayudar a los restaurantes a pasar la voz. La llave para la ciudad de Nueva York está aquí y la ciudad está lista. With that, let's turn to our colleagues in the media, and please let me know the name and outlet of each journalist.
We'll now begin our Q&A. As a reminder, we're joined today by Commissioner Doris, by DCAS Commissioner Lizette Camilo, by Mayor's Office of Criminal Justice Director Marcos Soler, by Dr. Dave Choksi from Health Department, and by Dr. Mitchell Katz. The first question today goes to Juliet from 1010 Wins.
Hey, good morning, Mr. Mayor.
Hey, Juliet, how you been?
Okay, thank you. So given that you're looking at these protocols and you're going to use these protocols for business, I was wondering, would you do something similar for city employees as they return to work this September?
Juliet, I want to make sure I understand your question, so I want you to restate. I mean, obviously, we have a wide variety of health and safety protocols in place for city employees, so I want to make sure I understand what you're asking.
Yeah, I was wondering if these were going to be sort of mandated protocols for people when they come back to work, and in city jobs? Will there be protocols to look at or check for vaccination, check for masks, or testing?
Yeah, the different pieces there, Juliet. Right now, as you know, we have for healthcare workers a state vaccination mandate. For Department of Education employees, we have a city mandate. First, on the 13th, it's vaccination or test, but then on the 27th, it goes to vaccination only. We're going to also on the 13th implement for all city workers the vaccination or test standard. In addition, of course, depending on the work site, but indoors, schools, hospitals, masks all the time in places where people are coming in contact with the public, indoors, masks, variety of protocols, cleaning, you name it. But that's something we're doing across all city agencies, of course. Go ahead, Juliet.
Okay, thank you. Also, what are plans, given, there are terrorist attacks in Afghanistan, what preparations are being made to protect the city in the event that there is any indication of any sort of upgraded, alert here? And given that the anniversary of 9/11 is approaching?
We take that very, very seriously, Juliet. Right now, first of all, to emphasize, despite the very painful things happening in Afghanistan, there are no specific and credible threats against New York City right now. And that's crucial. We're watching all the time. But of course, we're hyper aware that the 20th anniversary of that horrible day, 9/11, is coming soon. And NYPD has been preparing intensely. And we're working with all of our partners in the Joint Terrorism Task Force. We'll have more to say on that as we get a little bit closer, but rest assured that very intensive preparations are being made. But most importantly, no specific and credible threats directed at New York City at this moment.
The next is Dana from the New York Times.
Hi, Mr. Mayor. Quick question. Why, is the city giving any consideration to requiring child care workers who work with kids under 2 to get vaccinated?
Yeah, we are looking at a wide variety of employees of different types, different parts of the city workforce in general, meaning private and public. We've been moving the mandates so far that we thought were absolutely essential, but we continue to look at that. And as I've said, we've been climbing the ladder, so we're looking and we'll have more to say soon. Go ahead, Dana.
Thanks. Yeah, I ask for, I guess, the obvious reason, which is that children under 2 can't wear masks. Is there a reason why public school teachers are being required but not daycare workers?
Well, again, very different settings, obviously, and very different size settings. A lot of daycare settings are much smaller. But again, I will just say it this way, and I'll turn to Dr. Choksi because his agency has a lot to do with regulating child care facilities. We, again, are looking systematically, sector by sector. We take it seriously. Of course, we need everyone to be safe, and we want to figure out the right approach for each one. Dr. Choksi, you want to add?
Thank you, sir. That's exactly right. We are looking at this systematically. We're particularly looking at settings where we want to protect people, particularly younger people who are not eligible to get vaccinated yet. That's why, as the mayor said, we've started with schools, but we do have a range of other settings where additional requirements may come into play in the future. Thank you.
The next is Michael Garland from the Daily News.
Good morning.
Hey, Michael, how you been?
Good. How you doing?
Hanging in, brother.
I see you taking a page. I see you taking a page out of Jimmy Otto's handbook with your poster today.
Yeah, but look, Michael, hold on. My poster is very clean, neat. You can read it. Jimmy's poster was the scribblings of a mad genius, okay? I didn't know. I was looking at that thing for a while. I was like, what is he trying to tell us here? Continue.
I've got a couple of questions. You talked about vaccine incentives, both for individuals and restaurants, houses of worship. as I'm sure you're probably aware, we had a story that ran Saturday about the Reverend Kevin McCall basically putting out there that he's giving vaccination exemptions as an enticement for people outside of his church, and as well as, exemptions to people in his congregation. And I was wondering, how prevalent is this? Is the city witnessing a lot of this sort of thing? And, what should you do? What should the city be doing to push back on this? What are you doing to push back on it?
Yeah, we are not. I'll turn to Dr. Katz and Dr. Choksi for their insights, but I'll tell you from what I've seen now, a year and a half, watching this crisis and acting on this crisis, I have not seen that. I know Reverend McCall. I respect him. I appreciate him. I was very saddened to see that. I think that's a mistake. I think it should stop. Those quote-unquote exemptions are not going to be honored. That's not the way to do things. And so I think people should recognize so important to get vaccinated. Leaders of veritably every faith tradition have stepped forward, encouraged vaccination. You heard on Thursday, we had the Cardinal here and Reverend A.R. Bernard and Rabbi Potasnik, and so many faith leaders across the whole spectrum have been hosting vaccination events. So we just got to focus on getting people vaccinated and making sure people understand that's the only way to be safe. In terms of if we've seen much of this, Dr. Katz or Dr. Choksi, you want to add?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I think you've covered the important points. We haven't seen people bringing letters, but I just want to make sure everyone understands that no one can grant you a religious exemption. Religious exemptions are based on someone's personal, sincerely held beliefs. They're not based, no one can give you an exemption, but we have not seen these letters. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Go ahead, Dr. Choksi, you want to add?
The only thing that I'll add, sir, is that we have seen countless examples of faith leaders stepping up to support our vaccination efforts. They do it out of care and concern for people whom have been a part of their community for years and decades, and that's been vitally important. We've seen it not just in the Weekend of Faith, as the mayor mentioned this past weekend, but over the last several months. It helps people to worship more safely. And as we've been saying, vaccination makes every activity safer. So we've been very pleased with that partnership with faith leaders, and we'll continue to deepen it in the weeks ahead.
Thank you. Go ahead, Michael.
Thank you, guys. On courts, I'm wondering if you think, should OCA be calling in New Yorkers for jury duty given, spikes in courtroom-related Delta cases? And you mentioned helping out with facilities yesterday, and I believe last night. I mean, how exactly would the city address the court issue facilities-wise? I mean, do you have kind of specifics you could give us on that?
Yep. I'll start, and I want to, on the facilities question, turn to our Commissioner for Citywide Administrative Services, Lizette Camillo, in just a moment. And then on the question of how important it is to have courts functioning and the impact, I'll turn to our Director of the Mayor's Office of Criminal Justice, Marco Solera, also in a moment, but let me frame it. We got to address safety and health across the board. If criminals suffer no consequences, then there's a safety problem. So we have to have a functioning court system. If I said to you, well, why don't police stay home, or firefighters stay home, or EMS stay home, or go on with all the parts of our society, why doesn't everyone stay home because of COVID? Well, no, the answer is not that. The answer is to fight back. The answer is to get people vaccinated. The answer is, depending on the setting, to wear masks, to do the proper ventilation and cleaning. It's not to give up. It's to figure out how to make it work. And juries come together just like all other people in workplaces come together. We need juries for a functioning system. So there's something strange. There's almost like a suspension of belief going on here that somehow the court system has created this fiction that they could be allowed not to function while everyone else has to function. And I don't buy it. They need to function too. They should do it safely, and we'll help them. And we've been making that offer for over a year now. In terms of the facilities themselves, I want you to hear from Lizette Camillo, and I want to summarize. We provide vaccination assistance, free masks, air purifiers, plexiglass barriers, deep cleaning, you name it, for the buildings that are our buildings. And Lizette can speak to you about that ongoing effort to make sure courts are safe, and the fact that we welcome any additional requests that we can address. The state has responsibility for the courts, obviously, but we'll work with them in every way possible to address concerns. The only thing we won't accept is not having trials. Failure is not an option here. That's my message to the court system. Commissioner Lizette Camillo, talk about the efforts that have been made to help keep everyone safe.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Happy to. And like you said, we work very closely and we talk to OCA every day, our teams, in order to fulfill any requests that they may have regarding their facilities. But since the beginning of the pandemic, DCAS has assessed every single HVAC system in every single building. We've upgraded the outdoor air intake and installed the highest rated filters that the HVAC systems could withstand. We routinely replace the filters to ensure that we have really a good, clean filter to address any air quality issues. But we really rely on OCA to tell us what additional things they need for us to do, and we are happy to assist them. We work with them on the purchase of portable air filtrations, and we routinely work with them to install plexiglass barriers wherever they dictate. They have to tell us what their operations need, and we will, wherever we can, go and meet those needs, particularly on the facility maintenance wise.
Thank you so much, Commissioner. Now I want to turn again to Director Marco Soler to talk about, again, why it's so important, why just not having jury trials is not an option if we're going to fight crime and keep people safe. Marco Soler.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think what is important is for a system that can deter and incapacitate those individuals, a small number of individuals who are drivers of gun violence. And right now we don't have that because we don't have enough appearances, we don't have enough pretrial hearings, we don't have enough motions, we don't have enough pleas, as you have indicated. All those numbers are down by 40–50%. And as a result of that, we don't have trials. And it's absolutely important to have a system that can deter and incapacitate those individuals who pose the highest risk to our communities.
Thank you, Marcos. And look, I want to just broaden the point. We also, it's not just the worst crimes. Of course, that's our first concern. We don't want any criminality or lawlessness to go unaddressed. So the point is, what worked so well from 2014 through 2019 was neighborhood policing, working with a functioning court system. And we proved for 6 years we could drive down crime consistently and deepen the cooperation between NYPD and community, but that required a court system that created consequences for a range of crimes. We needed anyone considering doing something illegal to know that there would be consequences. When there were functioning consequences, it helped us keep everyone safe and stop crimes of all kinds. We've got to recreate that now. We're recreating all the other parts of our society. We've got to do that right now with our court system. Go ahead.
The next is Emily from New York 1.
Hi, Mr. Mayor. Could you please tell me what you know about a cargo building at JFK Airport being readied for the processing of Afghan refugees as they arrive here in this area?
Emily, thank you for the question. Our emergency management office was asked to work with federal and state officials on a contingency plan and to prepare a building just in case. What we're hearing right now, and of course all the decision making will be made by the federal government, all the key decisions will be made by the federal government, that they have not yet made a decision on whether they do need that building or whether there's going to be activity at JFK, but they asked us to get it ready just in case, and of course we're cooperating with the federal effort. Go ahead, Emily.
Mr. Mayor, what is your administration's commitment to any incoming refugees, whether they have family here or not, and do you support a lifting of the refugee cap at the federal level?
Emily, we're a city of immigrants and we're a city of refugees. Of course, we will provide a welcome to those who need our support. And we assume that will be true all over the country, and the entire country will work together with the coordination of the federal government to ensure that many different places participate for the good of all. I don't know enough about the cap situation. I do know that folks who have been through this horrible experience in Afghanistan, and particularly those who worked with the United States, deserve to be protected. And New York City will certainly play a role and do our fair share.
The next is Matt Chase from Newsday.
Hey, good morning, Mr. Mayor. How are you?
Good, Matt. How you been?
Been all right. Thank you for asking. This question is for Dr. Choksi. A study released 6 days ago out of Israel shows that immunity from virus-induced infection is far superior to that of vaccines. What would you need to learn before those previously infected and those whose tests show high levels of antibodies be able to enjoy the same privileges as those who are vaccinated? Is there anything you can learn?
Dr. Choksi, and if Dr. Katz wants to join in as well, go ahead.
Thank you, sir, and thanks, Matt, for this question. I am familiar with the study that you're mentioning. The study was released as a preprint and is not yet peer-reviewed, but it is an important contribution to the scientific literature. It does not, however, change our strong recommendation that even people who have been previously infected get vaccinated. And that's because the science is very clear that getting vaccinated affords stronger protection, gives you stronger levels of immunity against the coronavirus, which is particularly important in the context of the Delta variant. Thank you.
Dr. Katz, want to add anything?
Yeah, I just want to support Dr. Chusky's view that yes, we recognize people have had infection with COVID and that likely affords them some immunity, but why not strengthen that immunity through vaccination? We think that that's a much more successful strategy. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Go ahead, Matt.
Okay, preprints and non-peer-reviewed studies have been cited by you guys at these news conferences before, and the question was, what would you need to learn, not what your current recommendations are, but I have another question, which is, why won't you release data about reinfections in a manner just as forthcoming and comprehensive and transparent as you are releasing vaccine effectiveness data? I've asked for this a bunch of times, and the questions have been not responded to.
Yeah, Matt, I'm confused by the question, honestly, because we had a whole discussion, I think it was last week, about what we're seeing with reinfection, and we gave live numbers. I'll turn to the doctors again. We want that information to be out there. We know it's a reality. It still pales in comparison to what's happening with unvaccinated folks. But I feel your angst over this, but I really think we are trying to be transparent. If there's anything more we can be doing, I'm happy for us to do it. Dr. Choksi, Dr. Katz, you want to speak to this?
Thank you, sir. And yes, I believe Matt is asking, specifically about people who are getting reinfected who have not been vaccinated, and essentially, what the rates of that are. There is some data about this from around the world. It is something that we are tracking in New York City as well. And Matt, I believe my team has shared some of that data with you, but we'll be happy to follow up for any more detailed information. These are things that are nuanced to study, and that we have to make sure we bring the right analytic approaches to, in part because the fact that someone has a repeat positive test does not always mean that they have been reinfected, given some of the subtleties with respect to testing. So this is something that we're happy to follow up with you on if you want further information. Thank you.
Thank you.
The next is James Ford from Pix 11.
Great. Thanks for taking my question. And good
How are you
morning
today,
to everyone
James?
on the call. Very well. Thank you for asking. I hope you're well as well.
Thank you, yes. What's going on?
All right. City Council Education Committee Chair Mark Traeger has now said that both Health Commissioner Choksi, and Schools Chancellor Porter will testify tomorrow at his committee hearing on the school's opening plan. He also said there are still many lingering questions about reopening that he wants answered in the hearing, including how to know which students need to quarantine, what remote options, if any, there are for students generally, and for those who have to quarantine. Will you and Commissioner Choksi provide us with some answers to these questions, and what do you anticipate will come out of the hearing, please?
Thank you for the question, James. I'll turn to Dr. Choksi, but I'll tell you this. I listened carefully to what you just laid out. I believe all of that was covered in our discussion last week when we laid out the guidebook for parents. We talked about what were the exceptions, for example, medically frail students, students who are immunocompromised, where there can be instruction provided in a different way. We talked about the standard for quarantining, but remember that's a different standard this time because any adult or student who is vaccinated will not have to quarantine unless they're symptomatic. So we went over all that. It's, and it's been printed, it's out there, parents have it. Happy to see Dr. Choksi and Chancellor Misha Ross Porter go over that again at the hearing, but we really feel we've answered a very, very broad range of questions. We also said there was a few things we're still working on, particularly with our labor partners. But I expect the hearing to be, a lot of strong questions that are coming from parents and communities, and we're ready to answer them. I think it'll help get more information out there. Dr. Choksi, you want to add?
Thank you, sir. No, nothing to add in terms of that question. I'm also looking forward to the hearing. I know that there are several questions. We'll go over the information that we have released and answer any other questions that are forthcoming. Thank you.
Thank you. Go ahead, James.
All right, thank you both for the responses. And then on behalf of my colleague, Nicole Johnson, she asked this question. We continue to see gun violence happening sometimes in broad daylight and affecting more innocent bystanders, including an 81-year-old shot on the Upper West Side. We keep hearing some similar answers from the administration as far as what's being done. Do you think it's time to reevaluate the approach to help stop shootings that we've been seeing in the city?
James, I appreciate the question. Look, even a single shooting is not acceptable to me, obviously. And every time I get the reports constantly, every time anyone is harmed, whether, God forbid, there's violence between gangs and there's intended targets, that's horrible, and that means young people's lives are destroyed, both the victim and the shooter. And we all feel a special pain, I do, whenever it's an innocent bystander. We don't accept any of this. Now, in a few days, we're going to lay out the latest information of what we've seen in the month of August, and of course, June and July before that. And we've got a lot of work to do, James, and until there are no shootings, we have work to do. But you're going to see that there's been consistent progress in terms of gun arrests, consistent progress in terms of reducing shootings. We got a long way to go to fix everything that got broken because of COVID and everything that was unleashed. But we are making substantial progress, and with amazing support from communities, from violence interrupters and community groups and so many others. We're going to go over all that. But I want to reiterate, if we really want to solve the problem, we need a functioning court system. We have a lot to do at the city level. NYPD has a lot to do. It's on all of us to keep fixing this problem, and we are fixing it. But we cannot get the full results we need without a fully functioning court system. And again, James, I would say to all of you who, to your great credit, pursue important stories with great vigor and look under every stone, it's staring us in the face. One part of our criminal justice system is not functioning. Everybody else is. We've got to fix it.
We have time for two more for today. The next is Henry from Bloomberg.
Henry, you out there? Henry.
We'll move on from Henry. The next is Amanda from Politico.
Morning, Mr. Mayor. Good morning, Mr. Mayor. How are you?
Hey, Amanda, how you been?
Good, thanks.
Have you gotten over your volleyball injuries?
I have new softball injuries, but you know how it goes.
Yeah,
Just being sporty out here.
It's one or the other for me.
Well, thank you for asking. I wanted to talk to you a little bit more about these vaccine mandates for healthcare workers, particularly for health and hospitals. So there's been a little confusion among healthcare workers in terms of meeting either their system's deadline or the state deadline. And I've talked to nurses who said they're concerned about what happens if, let's say 5% of the workforce is asked to leave because they're not getting vaccinated. What does that look like with staff shortages that exist already? And so I was hoping for you to kind of give me your thoughts on those concerns and whether or not you're hoping to mitigate that with additional hiring. And then also I'd love to hear from Dr. Katz as well.
Yeah, and I'll turn to Dr. Katz for sure. Amanda, we talked about this as we were preparing our own mandate, which of course was vaccine or test. And then the state made a decision, which I certainly support, to do an across-the-board vaccine mandate for frontline health workers. That was very important. It was the right thing to do, in part because it created universality. So folks who want to work in the field, and now it's not a matter of leaving one employer going to another. It's expected everywhere. We also find that a lot of people, when really at that moment of choice, do decide it's the practical and smart thing to do to get vaccinated. So the actual incidence of people threatening to leave has been much less than I think some of the initial projections. We don't take it lightly, and we're certainly preparing if there are some departures. But I feel that the vast majority of our healthcare workers who are not yet vaccinated are going to get vaccinated, are going to stay, at their post helping people. They're there for a cause that they believe in, and I think we're going to find that this is going to be something we can navigate well. Dr. Katz.
Yes, sir. I totally agree with your assessment. My staff are incredibly dedicated people who choose mission every day to take care of other people, and I think that they will want to get vaccinated. As you say, because it's a statewide mandate, people would literally have to leave the healthcare field. It's not a question that they would leave health and hospitals and join another healthcare system. They would have to completely leave the field. And we found even with our current vaccine or testing strategy that when people understand, they may be initially reluctant, but they ultimately go forward and get vaccinated or testing. We've seen a major increase in our vaccination rates since we instituted the vax or test mandate. And then finally, we've already instituted this requirement for new employees, thanks to you, sir. You remember when you announced that for all new employees of health and hospitals, as well as for our contractors. That's already in place, and we have not seen any inability to bring in new staff or contractors despite having a vaccine mandate in those cases. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Go ahead, Amanda.
Great, thank you. And Dr. Katz, I'd love to follow up. Do you have initial projections of how many healthcare workers in your system you expect to leave, considering the new mandate? And if so, is hiring a priority to make sure that staffing levels are, I guess, at the level that they are right now, if in the case that happens?
As we turn to Dr. Katz, what I'd say, Amanda, just to frame it is, we went through extraordinary challenges last year, and we saw tremendous agility at health and hospitals finding additional staffing when the question was just a need to intensely increase the amount of staffing because of the cases that were growing and growing. This is a much, from everything I can see, a much lesser challenge, thank God. And certainly, I know H&H has the capacity to find additional staff when needed in normal times. But Dr. Katz, to the extent you want to offer any framing here of what you're expecting and your ability to fill in any of the roles you need to, how do you want to frame that for Amanda?
Well, thank you, sir. And as you say, last year in March, when we were under such dire conditions due to the explosion of COVID cases, health and hospitals added 7,000 new employees who worked at least one day. So we know that if we have to, we will. We are a system that is always creating contingency plans because we recognize there are natural disasters, there are man-made disasters. Sometimes we have to bulk up staffing. Sometimes we have to ask people to do different jobs and be flexible in order to take care of people. I believe when all is said and done, there will be a small number of people who will not wish to get vaccinated, but that we will be able to compensate for that small number of employees leaving us. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Last question for today goes to Ruvain from Hamadia.
Good morning. I just wanted to follow up on the question earlier about reinfections. So the doctors said that the recommendation is still to get the vaccine, even if you've had a prior infection, because the vaccine gives you additional immunity. Well, first of all, it's not a recommendation, it's a mandate. But the fact is that even if the vaccine gives you additional immunity, if there are certain rights that are being given to New Yorkers who have the vaccine, that the vaccine alone is enough to give you these rights, like going to concerts with the mayor in Central Park, then if the immunity from reinfection is even greater than that, why should that alone not be enough?
All right, I'll turn to the doctors, but here's what I think is the common sense answer. It's a very fair question, Ruvain. I appreciate the question, but I think the common sense answer is this. We're fighting an extraordinarily dangerous foe, and we found that vaccine is the difference maker. And this is based on a lot of research all over the world, and we've seen it with our own eyes. If we had not had a huge number of vaccinations in this country, Lord knows where we'd be right now and how horrible the situation is. So we've seen with our own eyes the impact it makes. It doesn't mean you can't have more than one strategy, but we're absolutely convinced that vaccination is a necessary part of any strategy. It's been proven on the ground all over the country. With that, Dr. Choksi, Dr. Katz.
Thank you, sir. I would just add that, that there's just a basic choice here if someone has had prior infection with COVID, and that's whether or not to get vaccinated. And if you just boil it down into that choice, it is very clear that getting vaccinated does confer additional protection. It strengthens your immunity. There was a study from the CDC that showed that people who are unvaccinated who have had prior infection are twice as likely to get reinfected compared to people who had prior infection but got vaccinated. So this is the basis of our recommendation. It's really both to protect the individual as well as for the broad population benefits that we know that widespread vaccination can confer. And I'll just add on a personal note, I faced this choice myself with respect to having been infected previously, and I made the decision to get vaccinated to protect myself and to protect my loved ones. Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Katz, want to add? Dr. Katz?
Nothing to add.
All right. Go ahead, Ruvain.
Nothing to add, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. Go ahead, Ruvain.
Yeah, so Dr. Choksi, no one's doubting that getting the vaccine in addition to a prior infection is better than just the prior infection. I myself made the same choice you did. I was infected previously and I got vaccinated. But again, I'm sorry, my question was not answered. If the vaccine immunity, if the city has decided that vaccine immunity alone is enough to be granted these rights like eating in restaurants and going to concerts, and if immunity from reinfection alone is better than vaccine immunity, as this Israel study has shown, then why should the prior infection alone not be enough to get these rights?
Well, again, I'm going to just challenge this on a common sense level and then let Dr. Katz and Dr. Choksi speak to it. You've got a study, and we value each study, but I've learned enough in the last year and a half to say it takes more than a single study to determine all the policies we're going to make. We have global evidence of the impact of vaccination. It's not conjecture, it's not a single study, it's not a new development, it's proven on the ground. We're not moving off that. We're doing the thing that we know works. And again, I really do respect the question, But I also want to go back to why we're doing what we're doing. We have to save lives. We know the vaccine has saved countless lives. We have to avoid letting the Delta variant gain more steam. We know the vaccine is helping us do that, and we need to avoid falling back to restrictions. And clearly, you see the life of the city right now. That's because of vaccination. In any natural immunity, that's great. But we didn't have vaccination before, and we saw the ability of COVID to come back. Once we instituted massive vaccination, we've seen our ability to hold the line and bring our city back. I think we've seen it with our own eyes. It's more powerful bluntly than any single study. Dr. Katz and then Dr. Choksi.
I agree, and I would again say I don't see what the argument is for not getting vaccinated if you have prior infection. Both you have gotten it and Dr. Choksi has gotten it, and that's what I recommend for my patients who previously had COVID. We should all want maximum immunity from this awful virus. Thank you.
Dr. Choksi.
Nothing to add, sir. Thank you.
As we conclude, I just want to put a point on it. It's not just, I do appreciate the question again. The question is framed almost from a personal level. I'm going back to the needs of all New Yorkers, 8.8 million people. We can't simply say, oh, let's do either or and let's make it something where we don't do everything possible when it comes to the number one tool, which is vaccination. It is proven to be the number one way to fight back. So to me, it would be a massive mistake to pull our punch just when we are gaining ground. We're fighting back the Delta variant. Why would we step back from that? We're making stunning progress. This city is showing when you have a high level of vaccination, everything else is possible. And we're seeing the horrible tragedies in other parts of the country. And I'm sure there are people there, good people, saying, hey, we can go without vaccination. Well, guess what? Look at the parts of the country where there are low levels of vaccination. Look at the horrible things happening to people there. And those are places where lives are being lost, and they are running the risk of falling back into all those restrictions. We can't let that happen here. So, as per usual, the answer is, everyone, if you're not yet vaccinated, no better day than today. Thank you.